The desert felt endless, an ocean of unmoving sand, broken only by the sound of wind whispering secrets too ancient to be understood. There, in the heart of that sacred emptiness, where the horizon dissolved into pale gold, a man walked carrying a question that no one else dared to hear. His name was Abram, but his true story hadn't begun yet. Imagine the exact moment when silence stops being just silence, when the air holds its breath, when the world seems to lean forward as if preparing to reveal something that has always been hidden. It was like that. No thunder, no stars falling from the sky, no gesture explainable by human logic, only a voice, not coming from outside, but rising from within, emerging from the deepest place where fear and courage melt together. Abram, leave your land, leave behind everything you know. I will show you something greater. No one else heard that voice. But maybe, if you close your eyes for a second, you might feel a similar calling pulsing somewhere inside your own life. That strange inner pull that makes you stare forward as if something is waiting for you, even when the path looks empty. Abram felt it. And in that moment, he realized the desert wasn't absence. It was invitation. He left his home, his comfort, his old gods, his old explanations. He even left behind the idea he had of himself, all for the sake of following a promise that didn't exist yet, at least not in the visible world. But there comes a moment in every awakened life when faith stops being a belief and becomes a decision. And Abram decided, with every step on the burning sand, he repeated to himself the words no one else heard, as if they were a map carved into his chest. The desert became less of a place and more of a necessary passage, a bridge between who he had been and who he was about to become. The journey to the promise doesn't begin when you arrive. It begins when you choose to depart. And on that day, Abram departed toward a destiny without a name. The long road devoured days and nights like an insatiable creature. The sky changed, shadows shifted, but the feeling remained. No one else was walking this path. It was as if the world stepped back in silence, watching from afar a man who dared to challenge the ordinary. Walking with faith is carrying the sensation that everything might go wrong, and advancing anyway. At each stop, Abram watched the fire crackle. Flames danced as if reflecting the shape of a future impossible to predict. Maybe that's why fire is so hypnotic. It reminds us that transformation comes from burning the old to reveal the new. And the unknown was becoming Abram's new home. He didn't know where he was going, and that didn't scare him. In fact, something inside him was growing, an unfamiliar certainty that the invisible was more real than anything he had ever touched. Every star was a silent promise, every step a confirmation, every breath a moving meditation. Yet every spiritual journey demands a sacrifice, and every sacrifice, no matter how small, hurts. Abram left friends, relatives, memories, rituals, emotional securities. He even left behind the version of himself that would never believe in a greater destiny. And as he abandoned all this, the inner emptiness turned into space. Space needed for what was coming. What truly moved Abram wasn't the vision of the promise, but the energy of the calling. The promise was still distant, but the calling burned. Just like Abram, you also carry a calling. And maybe, without realizing, you too are at the beginning of your own crossing. If this journey is already resonating with you, take one moment, like this video, and subscribe to the channel. It helps this message reach more people walking through their own deserts and strengthens this growing community moving toward the promise. The first sight of the promised land didn't come as a miracle, but as a subtle whisper across the landscape. After endless days of sand and stone, something changed. The color of the soil, the breath of the air, the vibration of the earth. It was as though the world slowly opened its eyes to receive Abram. Canaan wasn't just territory. It was a living symbol, pulsing with a truth too deep for words. The promised things in life appear first, not with noise, but with a change in atmosphere, gentle, quiet, unmistakable. When Abram stepped onto that land, something within him rearranged. It felt like a part of his spirit had been there long before his body arrived. A strange sensation of returning to the unknown, paradoxical yet real. Some places are not places, they are keys. Canaan was the key Abram had been carrying since his first step into the desert. He looked around. Distant mountains, breathing valleys, wind brushing the plants like a welcoming touch. Nature itself seemed conscious of his arrival. Leaves, stones, and gusts of wind whispered, "You have come." Finally. There, Abram built his first altar, not to ask for something, but to acknowledge that the promise wasn't just about land, wealth, or descendants. It was about transformation, and transformation always begins with gratitude. The altar was simple, but it carried the weight of a man who understood that faith is confirmed not when everything is done, but when you give thanks before seeing. The journey was far from over. In truth, it had just begun. The promise was real, but every true promise demands proof, and proof came as famine. The land that welcomed Abram now seemed to close itself. Nothing grew, nothing sustained, nothing blossomed. It was as if the world was stripping him of any illusion of control. Many would have given up. Others would have turned back. Some would have cursed the path. But Abram understood. Trials are not obstacles, they're revelations. He went down to Egypt, not to flee, but to expand. Some lands receive us, but others teach us to grow. A spiritual journey is never linear. It is curves, collapses, rises, detours, each shaping the soul. In Egypt, Abram saw power, structure, abundance. He saw a world built by human force, a sharp contrast to the world guided by a divine whisper. These two realities collided within him, and in that collision, Abram learned the promise is not about what you have. It's about what you become capable of carrying. He left Egypt with more than possessions. He left with awareness. Awareness that the promise wouldn't shield him from battles. It would guide him through them. The road continued. Some experiences stretch beyond time. They happen in silence, yet carry the weight of ages. They happen in darkness, yet light up everything inside. It was in such a night that Abram received the covenant. The sky felt heavy. The wind held still, waiting. Abram stood alone, surrounded by a darkness that didn't frighten, but revealed. Then, without warning, a presence thickened the air. Not light, not shadow, not sound or silence. Truth, not as a concept, but as a living force, bridging the divine and the human. Abram, look at the heavens. He raised his eyes. The stars brightened, not as distant sparks, but as eternal fires. Each one seemed alive, pulsing with a name, a purpose, a destiny. Thus shall your descendants be. This wasn't merely a promise. It was a cosmic declaration. Abram had no children. His age was against him. Logic insisted it was impossible, but in that moment, impossibility felt small. The covenant was sealed, not with ink or contract, but destiny. Abram's faith was no longer just courage. It was identity, and history shifted. A man's story is not measured by what he gains, but by what he is willing to give. Abram faced the deepest test of his existence. The mountain awaited, silent, ancient, a witness to invisible battles, a place where the world seems closer to the divine, where air weighs differently, where the soul recognizes what is coming. No crowds, no explanations, only the calling, the same calling that pulled him from his homeland, now returning as a final challenge. Each step was slow. Stones seemed to watch him pass. The mountain was more than scenery. It was a mirror. Everything he had learned, trust, surrender, courage, faith, concentrated in a single moment that would define his spirit. The voice returned, firm, deep, unavoidable. And at the most critical second, something happened. The calling turned into confirmation. Abram, the voice stopped the sacrifice. Now I know. This was never a test of obedience. It was a test of surrender, and Abram surrendered everything, even what he loved most. That was the final key, the key that unlocked the fullness of the promise. Just like Abram, every awakened soul faces their own mountain, and the real victory is not at the top, but in what you choose to carry and what you choose to let go of. If this story is touching you in any way, support this message. Like the video now and subscribe. Seriously, this helps this message reach more people who need it. The desert was the beginning, the promise, the road, the mountain, the revelation. Now, after all trials, Abram became something greater, not just a man, but a symbol, a bridge between the earthly and the divine, a living reminder that every spiritual journey begins with a calling and is fulfilled through surrender. His name changed. Abram was gone. Abraham emerged, father of nations, guardian of faith, silent architect of destiny. And this story is about everyone. We all carry deserts within us. We all hear a calling we sometimes ignore. We all walk through strange lands where faith weighs more than footsteps. We all face mountains demanding what we don't want to give. We all have a promise waiting inside us. Abraham's story reminds you, you don't need to see the end to begin. You don't need to understand the plan to follow the impulse of the soul. You don't need certainty to take the first step. You just need to listen and move, because there is a land destined for you, a promise waiting for you, and a version of you, stronger, greater, awakened, that only emerges after your own desert. In the end, Abraham didn't receive a land. He received an identity, a purpose, an eternity. And you? Maybe today is the day your calling begins to echo.